great author known for his spine-tingling tales and short stories. He is still admired by people today. In fact, every year, someone leaves a bottle of cognac and a rose on his grave the day of his birthday. People say he was crazy, insane, bipolar, an alcoholic, or a drug addict, although none of these things have ever been proven. What is known is that Edgar's life was sad. His childhood, relationships, and death have depressing stories. Now, he was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. His parents were David Poe Jr. and Elizabeth Arnold Poe, and both were struggling actors. He had an older brother and a younger sister, and his father abandoned the family when he was only 1 year old, and shortly after his father passed away. His mother continued to care for the family, but when Edgar was only 2, she died of tuberculosis. After their mother's death, the children were split up. His older brother went to live with family, and him and his sister were sent to foster families. Edgar was fostered by John Allan and his wife, who was thought to be his godmother, and they lived in Richmond, Virginia. Although they never officially adopted him, Edgar got his middle name from the Allans. He lived with them until he was of age. And in 1815, the Allans moved to England for business purposes. And according to one source, John, his stepfather, sent Edgar to excellent schools where the young boy began to develop his classical education as well as his outstanding ability for languages. Once home, he attended the University of Virginia for a short time. And he dropped out of college, though, because he was gambling and had caused great debt that John Allan refused to pay for. He became so poor after that he was forced to join the army, which he did under a false name, Edgar Perry. However, he was not in the service for long when his foster mother died and John Allan bought his discharge from the army. And soon after he got out of the army, he enrolled into West Point. However, that didn't last long either because he was drinking and he got expelled for lack of participation. Now, after he left the University of Virginia, he went to find his childhood sweetheart in Richmond. Her name was Elmira Royster, and they had been in love since he was 16 and she was 15. They wanted to get married when they turned of age, but Elmira's father did not approve of Edgar. And when he finally sought her many years later, she was already engaged, sadly. And Poe would not marry for another 10 years. And when he did, it was his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia Clem. Now, according to Charles May, an author, this was a decision that, because of her young age and her relationship to Poe, made him a subject of much adverse criticism and psychological speculation. During the time of their marriage, Poe and his wife had no children, and while they were married, he was pursued by other women, one of them being Sergeant Locke Osgood. She was a poet, and wrote about him in her work, which caused great scandal. Whether his wife knew or didn't is not clear, and she died soon after the scandal with the poet in 1847 of tuberculosis, just like his mother. However, it wasn't long before Poe was out seeking new relationships with other women. He is known to have relationships with numerous women after his wife's death, including his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Royster, who was now a widow herself. Many of these women helped him out financially, and in return, he would write poems and tributes to them. And 2 years after his wife's death, Poe died himself. It was October 7th, 1849, when he passed away. There is much mystery surrounding his death. Some say he died of drugs or alcohol, others say a brain lesion, and even others think rabies. The stories surrounding his death are strange tales of him doing weird things. It's said that a few days before his death, he was seen in a pub, looking out of sorts and dirty. It was cold out for early October, and very rainy and windy. And because there was nobody to care for him, he was admitted to the hospital. Now, the accounts at the hospital are that he was drunk, in a stupor, hallucinating, and delirious. It is said that he was fine one minute and crazy the next. Finally, after 3 days in the hospital, he died on October 7th. I have read numerous reasons of how Edgar died. The most interesting I found was death by rabies. And according to Dr. Michael Benitez, a cardiologist, Edgar's death could have been rabies. He goes on to say that in the brief period when he was calm and awake and frantic, Poe refused alcohol and could drink water only with great difficulty. Rabies victims frequently exhibit hydrophobia, or fear of water, because it's painful to swallow. However it is he exactly died, no one will ever know. But his legacy of spine-tingling literature will have live on forever. Now show the people again.
Don't forget to show us.
Okay.